put it all together, though, I'm saying that no matter how upset a Falcon fan might be that Julio is gone, what about the fan bases of teams that could have gotten Julio and didn't cough up the 2 and the 4 or try and beat it with a 2 and a 3, and it's not even in the same draft. It's 2 years apart.
I think that it's incumbent on those teams to get word to the media that covers those teams to explain that it was more than just giving up those draft picks. It was the salary obligation, the expectation that he's going to want a new contract, and then the nagging question about his health. Last year he missed 9 games with a hamstring injury. The Titans are comfortable that he's fine. And look, Rich, one of the realities of life in the NFL, and Julio Jones isn't the first, he's not the last, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way at all, but there will be occasions when a guy who otherwise could play doesn't play because of an injury that if he was motivated, if he was happy, if the team was a contender, he'd find a way to play through. And I think when the Titans did their due diligence, they came to the conclusion that the relationship was fractured, the team wasn't good, and Julio Jones was erring on the side of protecting his hamstring and protecting his future, because the alternative is go out there and risk further injury for a team that's going nowhere. But still, that's part of the risk you take on if you're the Rams or one of these other teams. Jalen Ramsey was confused why the Rams didn't go all in to get Julio Jones, and I'm sure plenty of other fan bases have players on the team, fans, others who are like, what's going on? What's going on is it's so much more than just those draft picks, and those other dynamics are things you have to feel comfortable with, or you're not going to make that trade.
Well, I mean, in terms of the dynamics for any team in the NFC, any fan of a team in the NFC, you could just forget it. I mean, like the Falcons, unless you were going to cough up the 1, now we're having a different conversation. But, the Falcons were not trading him in conference. And so what about teams outside of this conference? I mean, what about a team, like the Colts, who have the cap space, and now he's in this division? I mean, this is a hell of a downhill physical troika that's at the disposal of Ryan Tannehill, who is also one of the best run-throw threats in the NFL from that position, too. Not a lot of people put Tannehill in the same category as Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson, but you really can when you look at the statistics about how much of an issue he was in the red zone personally, himself, not just throwing it. Now you've got these 3 guys too. It's kind of crazy. Like maybe you make that trade just to prevent it from happening.
Well, when you think about it, there haven't been many of these quartets where you have the quarterback, the running back, and 2 great receivers. The Colts in the days of Peyton and Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne and Edgerrin James, and even though James was gone by the time they finally won a Super Bowl, the Rams with Marshall and Kurt and Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. It's one thing to have 3. When you add that second receiver whose skill set is virtually identical to the other receiver, that's trouble. And you make a great point. If I'm the Falcons, I'm doing everything I can to get the Colts to come to the table. And one of the best arguments is Titans are going to get him if you don't.
Yeah, right.
Now, Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, isn't going to fall for that kind of stuff, and I think he keeps a very steady hand.
Yeah.
And he's not going to get caught up in something that he knows doesn't fit with what he's trying to do. And I really do think, I don't know this, but I wouldn't be surprised if Chris Ballard was leery of where this goes. If Julio Jones comes in this year, has a big season, then what do you do? And don't they, I think they've got a second that can become a 1 that's been committed to the Eagles. So
Correct.
They didn't even really have a second-round pick in play for next year because that 2 can become a 1. And until we know what the condition is, both picks are tied up. So that may have been an impediment as well. But, the Colts at one point were fairly high up on the betting odds, and then they just plummeted. So somebody somewhere caught wind of the idea that the Colts weren't going to get in on it. And the Titans, to the people in the league, the Titans were always the favorite. And as of a week and a half ago, the prevailing thought was Titans for a 2, and that's what it was, plus a little bit extra to get the Falcons to feel better about the trade.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.